At 8, my parents sent me to visit my grandparents, but that visit lasted 17 years. After I built my own company, they showed up bragging that they'd raised a winner. I posted the real story and watched their church friends turn on them overnight. Hey Reddit! My parents made it pretty clear who their favorite kid was, and it sure wasn't me. So I dipped mentally, built my own life, and kept it pushing. But apparently, they weren't finished messing with me. Before I get to all that, here's how everything actually started. Hey, I'm Jaden Rivera, but everyone calls me Jay. I'm 25 now, working in tech with my cousin and living a pretty normal life. I don't usually post personal stuff, but this one part of my childhood still sits on my chest like it happened last week. So here it is. When I was 8, my house already revolved around my sister Talia. She wasn't dying or anything, but she knew how to act sick in a way that made our parents drop everything. I was the kid who got told to be understanding. I'd learned early that whatever I had going on wasn't as important as whatever dramatic sigh she let out that day. The day everything really snapped for me was supposed to be good. My class had this little showcase thing, nothing huge, but I'd practiced for it. I had the outfit picked out, hair combed, even my lines memorized. Then, right when we were supposed to leave, Marissa, my mom, burst into the hallway saying we had to get to the hospital because Talia wasn't doing good. No warning, no, we'll make it up to you. Nothing. I remember standing there with my backpack still on, trying to keep up, asking what happened. Mom just said, Jay, not now. Like me wanting to know why we were skipping my thing was selfish. Dennis, my dad, added his usual line. Your sister needs us. Don't make this harder. We got to the hospital, and I sat in the waiting room for hours. No updates, no one explaining anything. I can still picture the ugly fish tank in the corner and how the magazines smelled like old paper. I wasn't scared for Talia. I was confused. I didn't understand why she looked fine that morning. And suddenly the world was ending. Eventually, a nurse told Dad they could go home. Talia was fine. She had complained about chest pain, but all her tests were normal. Later, Gran told me the school had called. There was a test that morning, and at the nurse's office, Talia admitted she made it up to get out of it. On the way out, I finally said something like, So, can I still do my thing next week? Mom stopped walking and gave me that look, half offended, half dramatic. Jay, your sister was suffering. How can you even think about that right now? Dad didn't miss a beat. You need to learn some compassion, son. I didn't say anything back. I wasn't a big talker even then, but that was the first time I felt something in me just fold. Not break completely, but bend in a way I couldn't straighten. A week later, Mom told me I was going to stay with Gran and Grandpa for a little while. She said it in this upbeat voice, like she was sending me on vacation. They'll spoil you, she said, smiling like she was doing me a favor. Dad was already grabbing my little bag and acting like he had somewhere better to be. The actual drop-off is burned into my memory. We pulled up to Gran's house and the air felt weird, tight, like everyone knew something except me. Mom hugged me, but it wasn't her normal hug. It was stiff, light, like she was late to something. Be good, okay? She said, all sweet tones and fake warmth. Dad didn't even come inside. He stood by the car with the door open, waved once, and said, Help your grandparents out. No smile, no reassurance, nothing. Then he got in and drove off before I could even ask when they were picking me up. I tried to act excited because Gran was trying so hard to make me feel at home. She had cookies ready. Grandpa let me watch cartoons even though it was past the time Mom said I wasn't supposed to. Their house always felt like a safe place. So I told myself maybe this wasn't a big deal. This wasn't 8. That first night, Gran tucked me in and kissed my forehead the way she always did. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the old clock ticking in the hallway, waiting to hear Mom's car or the house phone ring. Nothing happened. The next morning, same thing. I kept looking out the window when a car slowed down outside. I kept asking Gran, when are they coming back? Hoping she'd give me something real. She just smiled in that sad way grown-ups do when they don't want to tell you the truth yet. Soon, sweetheart, she said, brushing my hair back gently. But the way her voice cracked told me everything. That was the moment I knew my life was shifting, even if I didn't understand how big the shift actually was. The first couple of days at Gran and Grandpa's felt like a sleepover. I kept my shoes by the door so I could run out fast when my parents came to pick me up. I asked Gran every morning if Mom had called. She'd say she hadn't heard anything yet, but maybe later. I believed her at first. I was 8. I didn't know how long a little while was supposed to feel. A week passed. Then 2. The cookies and cartoons were still there, but the excitement faded. I'd watch cars drive by their window and wonder if one of them was mine. I'd ask less often, partly because I didn't want to annoy Gran, partly because I already knew what her answer would be. Eventually, I stopped asking altogether. Not because I understood, just because I got tired of hearing the same soft voice telling me nothing. Gran and Grandpa loved me, but they were older. Grandpa wheezed every time he bent down, and Gran moved slower than she used to. They did their best, but taking care of an 8-year-old out of nowhere wasn't easy for them. I could feel them getting worn out, even if they never said it. That's when Victor, my dad's younger brother, started showing up more. He'd fix leaky faucets, mow the lawn, or bring dinner. He never made a big deal out of it. He'd just ruffle my hair and ask if I wanted to help him carry tools around. Sometimes he'd take me for ice cream, or let me sit in his truck while he talked with Grandpa outside. I didn't fully get what was happening, but I knew Victor being around made everything feel steadier. One afternoon after school, Victor found me alone on the swing set in Gran's backyard. I was kicking at the dirt, frustrated for reasons I couldn't name. He sat on the other swing, the chains squeaking under his weight. "Jay," he said quietly, "I need to tell you something." I looked at him, waiting. He didn't talk to kids like we were fragile, which I liked. He took a breath. "Your parents, they're not coming back for a long time." He didn't sugarcoat it. His voice wasn't angry at me, but it had that tight sound adults get when they're trying not to explode. I stared at the ground. I didn't cry, but something in my chest tightened. "They're busy taking care of Talia," he went on. "Your mom and dad think she needs all their attention right now." I didn't ask why they couldn't take care of both of us. At that point, I already knew the answer. I just nodded once and kept my mouth shut. Victor didn't push me. He just stayed on the swing next to me until Gran called us in for dinner. Months later, the moment that sealed everything happened on a random Thursday. Gran was cooking, Grandpa was reading the paper, and the phone rang. I sprinted to it, fastest I'd moved in weeks, because I thought maybe, just maybe, it was finally my turn. Before I could grab the receiver, Gran picked up. "Hello?" she said. I hovered right next to her, waiting for her to hand it to me. Then I heard Marissa's voice on the other end, clear as day. "Don't put him on," she said. "He'll just get upset. We can't deal with that right now." Like I was a chore, a problem. Then she asked about Talia. Gran gave a quick update. Marissa said okay, and hung up in under a minute. "No, tell Jay I love him. Yes, no, we'll visit soon." Nothing. I stood there staring at the phone for a long time. That's when something just shut off inside me. I stopped waiting. I stopped hoping. I didn't cry. I just walked to the living room and sat down like nothing had happened. From that day forward, I never tried calling them. Never wrote. Never asked why. Whatever part of me depended on them just went dark. Around that same time, Gran sat me down gently and told me she and Grandpa were having a hard time keeping up. It wasn't my fault. It was just reality. Uncle Victor and Simone, his wife, offered to take me in. They lived only a few blocks away, so Gran promised I'd still see them all the time. I didn't want to move again, but I could see how tired Gran was. So I nodded. When I arrived at Victor and Simone's house, Luca, their son who was my age, answered the door. He grinned like he'd been waiting for me. "You're sleeping in my room," he said, like it was already decided. "We're moving my stuff around so you can have the good side." He talked fast and acted like we'd known each other forever. Within an hour, we were playing video games, yelling at each other over who cheated, and running around the yard like idiots. It didn't feel forced. It felt normal. Something I hadn't had in a long time. Moving in with Victor and Simone came with more rules. Actual bedtimes, chores, homework before TV. But it came with real attention too. They asked how my day was. They came to school things. They made sure I ate real meals and not just whatever snacks I grabbed. At night, I'd hear Victor and Simone talking softly in the kitchen, but never about being overwhelmed or annoyed. It was always stuff like, "Did Jay like the new sheets?" Or, "We should get him the shoes he pointed at." I was still hurt, but for the first time in months, I didn't feel like something someone forgot. By the end of that week, I realized something simple but huge. I wasn't waiting anymore. By the time the holidays rolled around, I had completely stopped thinking about Marissa and Dennis unless someone mentioned them. I didn't reach out. I didn't check in. I didn't wonder if they'd surprise me. If they wanted anything, they could be the ones to show up. I was done chasing people who made it clear I wasn't a priority. Still, Gran asked if I could come with her and Grandpa to a holiday gathering the family was having. I didn't want to disappoint her, so I went. I figured I'd just stay quiet, eat a cookie, and leave early. The second I stepped inside the house, it was obvious nothing had changed. Marissa barely looked up from fussing over Talia, who was curled dramatically on the couch with a blanket around her shoulders. She was talking in that baby voice she used whenever she wanted something. "Mommy, my throat hurts again." She whined loud enough for the whole room to hear, even though she'd been screaming at her cousin 10 minutes earlier, according to someone in the kitchen. Of course it does, Marissa said, stroking her hair like she was 5. Do you want soup? I can make soup, or I can get the special crackers you like. Dennis stood nearby with his hands in his pockets, nodding along like he was some wise judge in the middle of a crisis. Everyone needs to be patient, he said to no one in particular. Her condition flares when she's stressed. There was no condition. Everyone except them knew it. I sat down in the only empty chair I could find. Before I could even settle, Talia slowly got up from the couch and walked straight toward me. She didn't limp. She didn't act weak. She just looked annoyed that I was sitting somewhere she suddenly wanted. That's my seat, she said. It's just a chair, I said quietly. She didn't care. She slid into it anyway, practically sitting on my hand until I moved. Marissa didn't correct her. Dennis didn't say anything. They just watched it happen like it made sense. I ended up sitting on the armrest of the couch. I tried staying out of the way, but Talia wasn't finished. A few minutes later, she reached over and grabbed the hand-me-down device I carried, an old smartphone with no service, basically an iPod, right out of my sweatshirt pocket. You got games on your phone? She said, already swiping through the screen. Give it back, I said. She ignored me and tilted her head toward Marissa and Dennis. He's so funny. He left the family but still keeps his phone like he's important. They laughed. Actually laughed, like she made some clever joke. I sat there and let it all happen without making a scene. No yelling, no arguing, just watching. Every piece of it confirmed what I already knew. I wasn't their kid anymore. I was background noise that occasionally walked into their house. We left early. Gran squeezed my hand in the car, but she didn't say anything. She didn't need to. I already understood. A few weeks later, Marissa and Dennis suddenly showed up at Victor and Simone's house without warning. I was doing homework at the table when the doorbell rang. Victor opened it, and I heard Marissa's voice instantly, all sugar-coated and fake warm. Hi, we're here to talk to Jay. Victor didn't say anything at first. He just stepped aside so they could walk in. He figured a quick, calm conversation inside was safer than a scene on the porch. Dennis smiled like he was greeting an old friend. Hey, champ, he said to me. I didn't answer. Marissa clasped her hands together. So, the church is doing their annual family photos this weekend. We really want you there. Everyone would be so happy to see you. It's important to us. Dennis added, This is a chance for family unity. You're old enough to understand how important that is. I looked at both of them. Their faces said they expected me to say yes automatically, like I was still living in their house, waiting for their approval. I said one word. No. Marissa blinked, stunned. Jay, don't be difficult. We miss you. No, you don't. Dennis tried stepping in. Son, I'm not going, I said, calm and steady. I don't want to. Silence hit the room like a dropped plate. Marissa's voice cracked. We're trying here. Why are you being so cold? You only want me there for the picture, I said. You didn't even ask how I'm doing. She went red. Dennis exhaled sharply like he was disappointed in me. You need to think about what's right, not what's easy. Victor stepped closer, arms crossed. He said no. Dennis turned toward him. This is family business. Victor didn't flinch. He is family. And he said no. Marissa stared at me like I'd betrayed her personally. I can't believe you're rejecting us like this. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. They left without saying goodbye. The door shut harder than it needed to. Victor looked at me for a second. You good? Yeah, I said. And I meant it. That day made everything clear. They didn't want me. They wanted a prop for a picture. Everything they did was about how they looked, not how I felt. Standing up to them didn't fix anything, but it showed me something important. I wasn't theirs anymore. Living with Victor and Simone didn't feel temporary. It just became normal. They didn't smother me or treat me like charity. They simply parented. Victor handled school stuff, asked questions instead of lecturing, and still showed up after long workdays. Simone was quieter, but just as steady, checking backpacks, noticing when I felt off, and offering comfort instead of forcing it. Luca became my brother in every way that mattered. We played, argued, and made up just as fast. When we fought over the last slice of pizza, Victor sat us down, made us talk it out, and split it evenly. That's when I realized he never took sides. He treated us equally. Gran and Grandpa stayed close. We visited most weekends. Grandpa asked about school and actually listened. They never pressured me about my parents. Just let me feel what I felt. The difference between families showed up in small moments. Once, when I got sick, there was no panic or neglect. Just soup, washcloths, and quiet care. That's when I understood what family was supposed to look like. Around 10, Something changed without us planning it. One morning, Simone was packing lunches, and I asked, "Mom, can you grab the blue folder for me?" She paused for half a second, smiled, and handed it over. She didn't say anything about the word. She just accepted it. After that, Mom came naturally. Dad slipped out the same year. I was in the backyard trying to grab a basketball from a high shelf and yelled, "Dad, can you help?" Victor walked over like it was the most normal thing in the world. No big moment, no speech, just a word that fit better than anything else. A few months after that, I overheard something that stayed with me forever. I came home early from school and heard Simone talking to Gran on the phone. "We tried for another baby after Luca," she said quietly. Nothing worked. Gran said something I couldn't make out. Simone continued, "When Jay needed us, it felt right. We didn't take him in out of pity. We wanted him. Truly." I froze in the hallway. Not because I was upset, but because nobody had ever said something like that about me. And she wasn't saying it for my benefit. She didn't even know I was there. Later that week, Victor brought up adoption in the most natural way possible. We were reorganizing things in the garage, and he said, "Jay, there's something I want you to think about. No rush." I looked up at him. "If you ever want us to make things official, adoption, I want you to know that's an option. It's completely your choice. You pick the timing. Or you can decide never. We'll love you either way." He said it without pressure, without looking for gratitude. He just gave me the choice nobody else ever gave me. I didn't answer right there. Instead, I thought about it quietly, about Luca calling me his brother, Simone noticing every little thing, Victor showing up every day, Gran and Grandpa loving me without conditions. I wasn't wondering if my old parents would ever want me. I was realizing I'd already found the people who did. By the time I turned 14, life with Victor, Simone, and Luca felt like the only version of family I actually understood. We had routines, chores, inside jokes, school nights, lazy Sundays, everything that makes a house feel like a home instead of a place you're staying in. Victor didn't bring up adoption often. He'd only mentioned it once back when I was younger. But one night, while we were cleaning up after dinner, he asked if we could talk for a second. We sat at the table while Simone wiped down the counters behind us. "You're getting older," Victor said, "and I want to make sure you know adoption is still something you can choose. No pressure, just the door is open if you want it." He said it softly, like he didn't want to overwhelm me. He didn't try to sell it or make it emotional. It was just another choice in my life that he wanted me to have control over. I nodded, but didn't give an answer. I wasn't unsure. I just needed time to think. At 14, the idea of making something official felt heavy, not scary, just big. Luca didn't treat me any differently during all of this. He didn't ask weird questions or get jealous. If anything, he acted even more like a brother, dragging me into whatever stupid thing he was doing, or arguing with me over who got the last soda. It didn't matter to him what my last name said. He'd already decided we were stuck together. When I turned 15, the idea of adoption finally stopped feeling abstract. It didn't feel like a decision I had to make. It felt like something that was already true. I was tired of having paperwork that said Marissa and Dennis were my legal parents when they weren't part of my life at all. They didn't check on me. They didn't show up. They didn't try. They only acted interested when it made them look good. So one night, I caught Victor in the living room and said, "I think I want it." The adoption. He blinked once, like he wanted to make sure he heard me right. Then he smiled. Not dramatic or tearful, just steady, proud. "All right," he said. "We'll start the process." Simone hugged me a little tighter at dinner, and Luca slapped the back of my head like he always did when he didn't know how to express feelings. Victor hired a lawyer within the month. That's when we learned how slow everything would be. Because Marissa and Dennis still had parental rights on paper, the court wanted their signatures and a stack of approvals. Nonsense hoops for people who hadn't called me in years. They didn't fight it. They didn't try to keep me. But they didn't make it easy either. When the lawyer called them, Marissa played the victim. "I don't understand why he's doing this. We're still his parents." Dennis added his usual fake morality. "This is a complicated family matter. We all made sacrifices." He never showed up for those sacrifices. But that didn't stop him from using the word. Their signatures trickled in, slow enough to feel deliberate. Once I turned 18, where we lived, my consent was enough to finish the adoption, so we stopped chasing their signatures, and the case finally moved. From 15 up until I turned 18, it felt like every few months someone sent another form that needed to be signed, reviewed, or redone, because some office lost the first copy. Victor handled most of it. I'd see him at the kitchen table late at night with paperwork spread out in front of him. He never complained. He never made me feel like any of it was a burden. Luca stuck with me every step. Whenever I felt annoyed about the delays, he'd say something like, "Dude, you've lived here forever. The court's just slow." And he'd toss me a controller like that solved everything. In a weird way, it kind of did. Soon after my 18th birthday, we finally got a court date. It wasn't a dramatic moment. No big speeches, no crowded courtroom, just a judge, a few forms, Victor and Simone standing beside me, and Luca sitting in the back row swinging his feet because he couldn't stay still. The judge looked over everything and said, "All right, Jaden Rivera, this is official as of today." Just like that. Simple, quick, done. My last name didn't change. Victor's is Rivera too, but the meaning did. Victor shook my hand like I'd just finished a job interview, then pulled me into a hug. Simone hugged me next, and Luca practically tackled me after yelling, "Took you long enough," in my ear. Gran and Grandpa met us outside the courthouse. Gran cried a little, but happy tears, the kind that don't weigh anything. Grandpa clapped my shoulder and said, "About time they caught up with the rest of us." We all went to a little pizza place afterward. Nothing fancy, just a booth that barely fit all of us and a couple of large pies. Luca argued with me over toppings. Victor pretended not to smile at us. Simone kept asking if I wanted more soda, and Gran shoved extra slices onto my plate like she was afraid I wasn't eating enough. Sitting there, surrounded by people who actually cared, I realized something simple. I wasn't celebrating a legal change. I was celebrating the family that had been mine long before the judge signed anything. Marissa and Dennis hadn't lost a son that day. They'd checked out years before. The adoption just put on paper what we already knew. The people who stayed were my parents, and they always had been. Luca and I grew up as brothers, and we carried that into adulthood without even trying. We didn't split apart after school like most cousins do. Instead, we moved forward like a team that already knew how to operate together. The business idea didn't start as some big dream. It started in Victor's garage with a beat-up laptop, a stack of notes, and too many late nights. Luca had worked at a small shop where the employees spent half the day answering repetitive customer questions. He said, "Why isn't there something that answers this stuff automatically?" I shrugged and said, "There probably is. They just can't afford it." That was the spark. We didn't invent anything original at first. We built small AI chatbots for local businesses, simple ones that answered FAQs, handled appointment scheduling, or sent automatic replies. We made automation templates for things like order confirmations, customer follow-ups, service reminders. Nothing fancy, nothing futuristic. Just tools regular people could use without a degree. We'd go door to door. Half the time, people weren't interested. The other half, they were curious enough to let us try. We'd set up a chatbot for a hair salon one week, then tweak a restaurant's automated reservation system the next. When one client liked what we did, they told another. We charged cheap because we didn't know what we were worth yet. Victor let us turn half the garage into a workspace. Simone brought sandwiches and made sure the garage heater worked in the winter. They didn't act like they were hosting the next big tech founders. They just supported us the way they always had. Gran and Grandpa were the opposite. Gran told every person in her church that, "My boys are building little robot helpers." Grandpa insisted on handing out business cards we didn't even have yet. We eventually made some just so he'd stop drawing our names on napkins. Growth wasn't quick. We made mistakes, messed up builds, used the wrong AI models, broke things that worked fine before we touched them. Luca complained. I rewrote scripts at 2 in the morning. We both swore we were done at least 6 times. But then something would click. A client would say, "This saves us hours," or a small business would get more customers because of our chatbot. And we'd push through. By 25, the company was real. We had a name people recognized. Local businesses trusted us. A community magazine wrote a piece about young innovators improving small business efficiency, which Gran bought 10 copies of. We hired 3 employees, small on paper, huge to us. We moved out of the garage into a small office. Luca handled clients like he'd been doing it for years. I handled development, operations, and everything that needed someone who didn't sugarcoat anything. I'd grown into myself. I didn't try to impress people, but I didn't let anyone push me around either. Firm boundaries, direct answers, no fake politeness. Luca said I walked into rooms like I already knew what I wanted. Victor called it being steady. I called it being done with letting anyone else dictate my place in their life. That clarity made it easy to notice when the past started circling around again. It started quietly. Gran called me one evening while I was finishing up some code. "Sweetheart," she said carefully, "your mother asked about you today." I didn't ask why. I didn't need to. Gran hesitated. "She heard about the business. Said she's proud of you." I thanked her for telling me and hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. I should have known better. 2 days later, I got a message request on social media from Marissa. Her profile picture was some bright church photo, her smile bigger than I'd ever seen in real life. Hi, honey. We're so proud of you. We'd love to reconnect. Can we meet? We miss you so much. I didn't open it again after the first read. Luca saw the notification pop up. You kidding me? He muttered. They've been gone for what, 17 years? I shrugged. They heard we're doing well. We both knew that was the real reason. Then came the second message. Longer, almost dramatic. Families drift. Things were complicated. Talia always talks about you. We've been praying for you. We just want to heal together. I could practically hear the guilt dripping through each line. Talia didn't talk about me. Dennis didn't pray for anything except looking good in public. And healing wasn't what they wanted. They wanted proximity to success. Victor heard through Gran that they were asking questions about me. He didn't confront me or try to give advice. He just put a hand on my shoulder one night while helping us move equipment and said, "Whatever you decide, you don't owe them anything." Simone added later, "You're not a kid anymore." Or, "You don't have to play along with people who didn't show up." Then Dennis reached out. He didn't choose social media. He used email like he was trying to sound official. "Jay, your mother and I want to talk. We know the past wasn't perfect, but forgiveness is important. Talia is doing better and would love to see you. Please don't close the door. No apology, no honesty, just moralizing tones and vague statements." I closed the laptop. "They want something," Luca said simply. "Yeah," I replied. "And it's not me." I wasn't angry or tempted, just aware, clear as day, that they'd ignored me when I had nothing. And now that I had something of value, they suddenly remembered they were family. Their messages weren't about love, just convenience. And the guilt tripping was only the first move. I figured the messages and emails were the end of it. Ignore them long enough, and people like Marissa and Dennis usually move on. Turns out I underestimated how far they were willing to go once they realized Luca and I weren't just playing business. We had real clients, real visibility, and real momentum. And that's when they stopped hinting and started showing up. The first hit came at a local business expo we were invited to. Nothing huge, just a community event where companies set up booths and talked about what they offered. Luca handled the demos. I handled the logistics. And everything was moving smooth until I heard a voice I hadn't heard in years. "There he is, my boy!" I turned around and saw Marissa waving like she was greeting a celebrity she discovered. She pushed through a small crowd, Dennis right behind her, smiling stiffly like he was proud to be recognized. Luca shot me a look. "Seriously? Here?" Marissa reached us first. "Jay, we're so proud of you. We always knew you'd grow into something special," she said loudly, making sure people around us could hear. Dennis added, "This company wouldn't exist without the foundation we gave him growing up. They didn't give me a foundation, they gave me distance." But here they were, acting like we were a tight-knit family success story. A few attendees started glancing over, whispering. Luca stepped closer to me, jaw tight. "We're in the middle of something," I said. Calm, firm. Marissa ignored that. "We should get a picture together for the paper," she said. "You know, mother and son. People love that." "No," I said. Her smile twitched, but before she could respond, I turned back to the demo and kept moving. She stood there for a second, stunned, before Dennis pulled her aside. They didn't leave, though. They stayed long enough to make things awkward, then finally disappeared. A week later, they tried Luca. He came into the office shaking his head. "Okay, you're not going to believe this," he said. "Your parents messaged me, like directly." I raised an eyebrow. "About what?" "They said I should help bring the family together since you're being dismissive." He made air quotes. "They said you're being emotional, and I'm the reasonable one." I stared at him. Luca laughed once, annoyed. "I blocked them. They really think I'd go behind your back." That move didn't surprise me. Marissa loved dragging the closest person into the mess to look like the sympathetic one. But Luca shutting it down so fast told me exactly where we stood. Next came Talia. It started with an email. She introduced herself like we were strangers. "Hi, Jay. Heard you and Luca are doing cool AI stuff. I'd love to be involved." Then she sent a second one. "I can help with social media, branding, whatever you need. Family sticking together is important." Then a third. "I can come by the office this week." Before I even replied, or ignored her, she pulled our address off the website and showed up. She walked straight into the lobby like she owned the place, acting impressed by everything, touching equipment she had no business touching. "This is so cute," she said. "I can totally help you make the brand more polished. I know people." Luca stepped in front of her. "You need to leave. She blinked, offended. Why? I'm family. And you guys need help if you want to grow. I didn't bother arguing. I just said, we didn't invite you. Don't show up again. She tried to pull out the sick girl act she used as a kid, letting her voice tremble. I'm just trying to reconnect. God, why are you being so aggressive? Luca pointed at the door. Out. She left, wiping imaginary tears, but I knew it wasn't over. 2 days later, the money pressure started. Dennis emailed Luca and me at once. We're family. It's tradition for families to support each other. You two are doing well now, and Talia needs stability. We should discuss financial arrangements. Financial arrangements. As if we owed them a cut of our work. As if ignoring me for 17 years was some kind of interest-free loan I was now required to repay. I replied with a single sentence. There will be no financial involvement or arrangements of any kind. Dennis responded with a long paragraph about responsibility, morals, and doing the right thing. I didn't bother answering. And then they went after Gran and Grandpa. Gran called one night, voice shaking with anger more than sadness. Your mother showed up here, she said, crying, saying she doesn't know why you're being so cruel. I closed my eyes. Marissa always weaponized emotion when she was losing control. What did you say? I asked. That she made her choices, Gran said, and she doesn't get to rewrite history now. Grandpa got on the phone after. If they bother you again, you tell me, he said. I've got a front porch and plenty of words. I laughed because the image was ridiculous, but deep down, it meant everything to know my grandparents were still in my corner. The last move came a week later. A letter forwarded through our business attorney. Nothing serious, but dressed up to look official. Securing accurate family records for future inheritance, reviewing family rights, and a request for documents and projected valuations. Our attorney flagged it as baseless posturing. In plain English, intimidation. I sent it to Victor. He called me 5 minutes later. I'll handle it, he said, voice tight. They don't get to harass you. And that was it. No drama, no panic, no guilt tripping me into feeling bad for standing my ground. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was fighting alone. I was done letting people who abandoned me decide what family meant. I had my own definition now, and they weren't part of it. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.